Now look, I love a good joke.
Borderlands 3 sells more than 8 million copies according to Gearbox. Borderlands 3 is a massive sales success, says 2K. With the release of the third entry, Borderlands has become a billion-dollar global brand, says 2K. These superlatives, these accolades that 2K and Gearbox have thrust onto Borderlands since the release of the third entry have been nothing short of spectacular, glowing. They want to tell you how financially successful the game has been, how many sales they've made, how big the brand is. And then they don't really want to tell you about what's going on behind the scenes and how they're making all of this happen and what this means. This story and everything that's in it, even in the weird parts, kind of sucks. It's not one of the stories I love covering because I know people at Gearbox. I've talked to devs in the past there. They're great people that work really, really hard. And what Borderlands 3 becomes, or what it's becoming now, is kind of this big giant sign, this big flag that says, hey, there's some stuff seriously wrong at Gearbox, and most importantly, it's not with the people actually making the games. We've heard about a lot of Gearbox problems in the past, and they're all usually correlated to one person in particular, Randy Pitchford. Whether it's him saying something stupid, whether it's him not being able to shut his mouth, or whether it's him taking $12 million bonuses when development starts on a new game, borderline illegally. It's the lawsuits being filed by actual Gearbox lawyers against Gearbox. Who name, you guessed it, Randy Pitchford in the suit. Gearbox is a great studio of talented people whose management is constantly under fire for doing one stupid thing after another stupid thing. Some of it provable and some of it just talk. But very, very, very recently, an article was posted by Jason Schreier over at Kotaku that says, despite huge sales, Borderlands 3 developers are getting stiffed on bonuses. Now, that headline is pretty descriptive. It kind of tells you what's going on here. Borderlands 3 developers, the people making the game, are not getting the bonuses that maybe they were promised or maybe they were originally given. But when you dig deeper past that headline, when you dig deeper past that title, you get something that's actually far worse, something that's significantly more difficult to fathom, to digest, and something that kind of shines a light on something that happens throughout the video game industry and why it's important that these kind of things stop. So first, I'm going to talk about what's going on at Gearbox. Then, I'm going to talk about what the wider reaching implications of this are, and then I'm going to talk about what's really manipulative, what's really terrible about this story that is kind of a read between the lines thing, but it's staring you right in the face. So let's start with what's going on. Let's take a look at the article itself. For those of you that don't know, Gearbox staff is paid on a structure that's a bit different than a lot of other video game developers or publishers. It's a profit sharing structure. What this means is, as Schreier points out, royalties from the developers' games are split 60-40, with 60% going back into the company and its owners like Pitchford, while 40% are distributed to the employees in the form of quarterly bonuses. As Schreier points out, quote, this system has been in place since Gearbox's inception, and when the company is hit big, it can be lucrative. When 2012's massive Borderlands 2 came out, many Gearbox workers made enough money to buy houses, a fact that the studio often touted when recruiting new employees. Which, I just want to pause that really quickly. I don't think touting salaries that allow you to live in homes is the best way to sell your business. I would hope to God that these very skilled employees, these people that are doing work that a lot of other people simply can't or aren't trained to do, would be making enough money to buy homes, but I digress. The article continues, and I'm going to keep quoting this article because Schreier sums it up pretty well here, at least this portion of it. Since then, Gearbox has been struggling, failing to find much financial success with flops like Alien Colonial Marines, which we all know what happened there, Battleborn in 2016, which is also maybe even a bigger failure than Alien Colonial Marines because that game basically was shut down, removed from shelves, totally purpose. There's no point in buying it. And as a result, Schreier says quarterly bonuses have been smaller in recent years. In 2020, he points out, that was supposed to change. Several Gearbox employees, he says, told Kotaku that company management promised them six-figure bonuses following the launch of Borderlands 3. The more years they've been with the company, the larger the check. He says, and this is going to be so important with what I'm going to talk about and what all the implications of this are in a minute, but he says, this vision of financial success helped the Gearbox's developers get through many long nights and weekends working on the game. Now, a word he simply doesn't use here, but is clearly implied, is crunch. It helped Gearbox employees and developers get through crunch. And apparently, in a meeting that happened just a few days ago, Randy Pitchford told basically everybody that the bonus checks would not be what they had promised. They had promised big bonus checks for everybody after the success of Borderlands 3. These promises were made 5-figure bonuses people were going to get, 6-figure bonuses people were going to get, and the longer it was a legacy structure, the longer you were there, the more you were going to get, the more that check was going to be. But Pitchford told employees that those checks Gearbox, well, they wouldn't be coming. He said, surprise, surprise, the game had been more expensive than expected. The company had grown significantly larger than it had in the past, Schreier notes, and their sales projections have been off base. Even though 2K said in February, as Schreier points out, we expect lifetime unit sales to be a record for the series. Now, I want to talk about a couple things really quickly before we dive further into this. Them saying something like our sales projections were off after selling millions and millions, record-setting numbers for the series is not only absurd, but it feels a lot like a lie. And even if it is true, how substantially can you misread the market to make that many sales and still not understand proper financial projections for the series? This reeks of Square Enix not but a couple years ago saying things like Tomb Raider had failed even though it sold millions of copies and charted #1 in months. They said things like the game had been more expensive than expected. You had to have known that for years. You had to have seen this coming. This is not news to you. You didn't suddenly look down at your bank account and go, oh wait, there's not as much money in there as I thought. You've known this. For as long as you've been developing this game, you have known this game was as expensive as it was going to be. You plot these things out for months, years in advance. You understand the financial projections for projects like this way in advance. And then they said, well, one of the reasons is that the company has grown larger. Again, something you were fully aware of before probably making these promises to your employees. But Schreier points out one large factor in the cost of the game was a tech swap midway through development from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4, and in addition, the DLC cost is added into the cost of the overall game before rev sharing starts, brings the total cost of developing this game to $140 million. The base game cost $95 million to develop, and apparently the DLC cost close to $45 million to develop. 2K and Pitchford have acknowledged that the game is way too expensive to develop. Now, I want to kind of put this into context a little bit and start talking about the reality of this and the implications of this. First, I'm going to say a name that you don't expect to hear in a Borderlands video, Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima and Konami's split was very clearly over money. There haven't just been rumors, there have been reports after reports after reports that Konami did not like the way Kojima developed. He didn't like the time he spent, but most importantly, the projects were getting way too expensive. Apparently, the bill on the Phantom Pain was out of control. So, there was a split. Konami finally said the amount of money Kojima is spending is not worth it. We need to get him out of here. Kojima was out of there. The problem with something like Gearbox is really simple. They're not going to make the same decision when it comes to their executives, like Randy Pitchford. Everything they've described in here, the game was more expensive to make than we thought. We didn't realize how big we were getting. We didn't realize how expensive the tech swap was going to be midway through development, which was not necessary, by the way. It was a choice. All of those things are management decisions. All of those things are executive decisions that are made in one way or another. What this means is that the people causing the financial issues for the studio are the people making the decisions, not the people making the games. So what's happening is people like Randy Pitchford are mismanaging and misadvising their businesses. And the people that are suffering are the people actually making the games. You know, the ones with talent and skills. No one asked to make Aliens, Colonial Marines within Gearbox. You know, the people making the game. No one said, hey, let's make Borderlands 3 as expensive as possible. Let's grow or outgrow our current size. No one did. Those are executive decisions. But what this article notes, it's something that's really rough for these people, is Gearbox already underpays their employees. That's the whole point of the profit sharing margin. They are not being paid at the average salary level for their jobs. In fact, they're paid below average as video game developers at Gearbox. So, not only are they not being paid as much as their colleagues or other people in the industry working on AAA games, but now the very things that are supposed to financially substitute that added pay, the things that are supposed to supplement their pay and make this reasonable and okay, is being taken away from them. Now, here's my problem with all this, and it's really simple. This timing is absurd. Gearbox, 2K, Randy Pitchford, the executives in both of these businesses knew that Borderlands 3 was becoming more expensive than they expected. They knew that they were outgrowing what potentially was their needs. They knew the tech swap was putting a strain on their budget. They knew that by the time this game had shipped, it had cost X amount of money. They knew what their marketing budget was. That's how marketing works. They knew what the DLC was going to cost. That's how these things work. When budgets are made, which every video game project has, if they are broken. If they go over budget, those things have to be approved, usually by the publisher, sometimes by the developer themselves. So even if they did go over the budget, someone somewhere knew that this was happening, knew how much they were going over, knew how much needed to be made. Then, somewhere in the midst of all that, they still made a bunch of promises to employees about bonuses and their salaries, which people use to dictate their life decisions, like with any job. And throughout all of this, they set their employees through crunch after crunch after crunch, delay after delay, crunch, 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 long nights, weekends, all with the promise of financial success. They were gonna get these bonuses. Why am I sitting here crunching? Why am I working this job? Because it's gonna be worth it. Because I'm gonna be able to provide for my family. I'm gonna be able to pay my rent. I'm gonna be able to do all of these things, and it's gonna be okay. Can I get a different job? Maybe. Could I work at a different developer? Yeah, but it's gonna pay off being here because I'm being promised, I'm being told that that's going to be the case. And then, once the game's shipped, once the DLC is out there, it's starting to be finished, now we're gonna tell you, wait a minute, nope, all that stuff that you went through, all that stuff we put you through, well, we miscalculated a bit. We're not gonna be able to pay any of that. It's like every animated show ever, or every sitcom ever. You put the fat guy on the treadmill, you take a fishing rod, you hold it in front of the treadmill, and it's got a cupcake at the end of it, or a piece of chocolate at the end of it, and he just keeps running on the treadmill, you keep holding that chocolate, and then finally, when he's lost the weight that you need him to lose, you don't give him the chocolate, you just take it away. And that's the exact same scenario here. Gearbox in 2K, the brass, the executives got what they needed from people, and then decided to let them know that they're not going to give what those people need themselves. And instead of saying, you know what, to make up for this, we're gonna pay you bonuses that will get you at least the average amount that someone in your position will be paid. Nope, we're just not gonna give you the bonuses that we promised. But hey, thanks for trying. And some of you might be thinking, well, maybe they expected to do all this and spend all this extra money and that the sales of the game would pay off. It would make up for that and they'd still be able to give out these bonuses. You can't possibly believe that Gearbox and 2K thought Borderlands 3 was gonna sell better than it already did. It's well past 10 million copies. It's the best record-setting entry in the series. You cannot possibly tell me that anybody with a business degree or any amount of marketing knowledge would think that the market was going to eat this up like it was the next Call of Duty. There's no way that's possible. They barely marketed Borderlands 3 to begin with. In fact, the real marketing for the game didn't start until the very tail end of its hype cycle, which A, is not normal, and B, was a bit weird. The game launched with such a dud in terms of marketing that it's surprising that it sold as well as it did. And that, again, by the way, is an executive decision-making process. How much and when do we spend money on marketing? The game was mismarketed, period. It was marketed to people that already knew about Borderlands, that played Borderlands, that liked Borderlands. Sure, they gave off their little gameplay demos, things like that, but the average person, where was the marketing for them? There was like 2 weeks of real marketing for this game, and that was it. Zip, nada, done. Even the DLC, sure, they're taking out ads at places like IGN, but even that's not being marketed very well. I'm not seeing YouTube ads like I used to for Borderlands 2 DLC. I'm not seeing it anywhere. And you know what that's a sign of? A company that spent too much money developing the game to begin with. They don't have any marketing budget. They spent too much money. They're not lying. They really did overspend. And you can see it in the marketing. It doesn't exist. It's not there. But the people that are suffering are the people not making these decisions, and that's a huge problem. It's not okay to allow people to work through crunch, to work through tough times, to take less money than they normally would, while promising them that things are going to be better, that they're going to make more money, while making these promises, even numbering these promises, 5-figure, 6-figure bonuses. Even if the payout structure is known to them, if you make these promises, you are manipulating them. You're keeping them in their position, knowing they should be paid more, knowing they should be getting more, and you're keeping them there doing the job you need them to do and then casting them aside. This is a dangerous trend that I hope to God we don't see anywhere else in gaming. We should not be incentivizing people through crunch and ripping those things out from underneath them, ripping their legs out from below them. Gearbox has serious problems, and it's not the people making the games, it is the brass. As I have said multiple times in this video, I want to drive that home. It is executive level issues that need to be solved. These games are great, but they should not cost $150 million to make, period. Pay your employees. Pay them fair wages or pay them the bonuses, but pick one. Now I want to know what you guys think. Did you buy Borderlands? Did you see any marketing for Borderlands? Did you buy the recent DLC? Are you interested in this series at all? And if you are, great. But if you're not, I'm more interested. Did you not like Borderlands 3? Did you not like Borderlands 2? Did you just not know this game was doing anything? Have you just not heard people talk about it? And what do you think about this current situation in Gearbox? Let me know the answers to any of those questions down in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you haven't yet done so, also press subscribe. Put up more and more content like this each and every week, so I'd subscribe so you don't miss any. Also, a little bell next to the subscribe button is just a notification button. You can hit that bell to make sure you're actually notified when I upload. Really helps me, help you out. You'll actually see the content. And what you're looking at right now are 2 more recent videos from this channel. You can click on those to stay right right here. And until next time, guys, I'm out.